What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm coming at you with an updated Dragonmaid deck for the brand new format. And it has been a while since I have updated the Dragonmaid list, and I know a lot of people have been waiting on it because for a while this was essentially a Dragonmaid channel. With so many regionals that have come up recently where I decided not to take this deck, I haven't been able to show it the sort of love I am used to showing with it, because normally we were taking it to a lot of tournaments where we got a lot of first place finishes with this deck, a couple of case tournaments, a Starlight Dragoon tournament, and this deck has done us well. So it is time to give it an update. But before we get into it, if you do like Dragonmaid and you do like Yu-Gi-Oh content, give this video a like and subscribe. It really helps me out in what I do here on the channel. I am trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It's a small little goal I've set, and it would be greatly appreciated if you could help me reach it. And also links down below to our Discord and our other social media links if you want to follow the channel more closely. But without further ado, let's get into this pure Dragonmaid deck profile. Alright, so starting off, we're going to start off with our very obvious 3-chamber Dragonmaid. Chamber is, of course, the best starter in the deck. You're always going to maximize her at 3. And yeah, she just adds a Dragonmaid spell or trap on summon, which is very, very good because there's quite a few of those you want to be searching. And of course, her partner in crime, the other best starter, is the 3-Parlor Dragonmaid. I would say these are equally the best starter in the deck. You just want to see either of them to go sort of into your plays, and they're very important to see very early on. So we are maximizing both of them at 3. Parlor, of course, sends a Dragonmaid spell or a Dragonmaid card from deck to grave, which is super good because it means you can send Tidying, which essentially is your first turn combo to get 1-card seals. Now, I did mention earlier this is pure Dragonmaid, so we are not playing the branded cards that really lock you out of seals. And if you want to hear why I'm not playing the branded version, I'll sort of save that for after the main deck. If you want to hear my reasoning on why I'm deciding to play it pure as opposed to the branded list that some people are trying. And yeah, if that piques your interest, stay tuned until the end of the main deck. But yeah, we are on the 6 main starter Dragonmaids, very, very standard. Then we are on the 1 Nurse. She is still very important, even in this version that I have changed a bit. It's not super different from my last list, but the format is so different that I've made a couple of changes I didn't really think I would make previously. But yeah, 1 Nurse still. We have cut Kitchen altogether because Kitchen is just not a starter, and I'm already at 41 cards in this list, and it was really hard to fit exactly what we wanted. So we have the just these 7 Dragonmaid, sort of the small Dragonmaid monsters. And then for the big Dragonmaids, we are on 1 Ernest and 1 Lorpar. I actually considered upping Lorpar to 2, which might sound weird, and then just running 3 big dragons with 2 Lorpar and an Ernest instead of Ernest, Lorpar, and Tinkek, which is more standard. The thing is, Lorpar is actually a really good go second card, especially this format. If your opponent has a live Mirror Jade, you can just Lorpar it, or your opponent has a Baron or a Chi-Shao or a Chi-Chi Longyun, you can just activate Lorpar, and it just can't activate that turn. It's a really good go second card. And I appreciate that a lot more than Tinkek, but right now we are on the 2 big dragons because at the end of the day, these are bricks, but because I also upped the count of one of the other cards in the deck, 3 dragons could actually make sense, which I'll get more on that when I get to that. Next up, some extenders. We are on 2 Noctovision. Of course, we are not playing the branded version, so this card's really good because we're just trying to access seals, and this lets you get Heavenly Spheres plus a draw. Also, it is a level 5 or higher dragon, which is really good for helping you to make Sheo. So this card's always been great in the deck. The only problem with him is the fact that you have to see a small Dragonmaid for him to be good. And that's always been sort of the issue with Dragonmaid, is seeing a starter along with your extenders. Dragon extenders are so weird in the sense that every Dragon extender is just not a starter as well. Dragons have starters and they have extenders. They don't have things that do both very easily. So Nocto here isn't a phenomenal card that can also protect your back row, which is good to note, but we're not maximizing him because, again, he requires other cards to be good. Then we do have some additional starters here. We have the 2 Black Metal and the 1 Red MD. So this package, I've had it in, I've taken it out, and then I've had it back in. I was actually playing Destrudo previously for a while, but this package is just really consistent at doing exactly what it needs to do, which is make spheres, right? We just want to make Hieratic Seal and, hopefully a Sheo alongside of it, but not always. Red MD also provides, you know, a level 5 or higher dragon, which is very good, but also just like a generic extender. If your plays get hindered, you can just sort of go into Striker Dragon and then banish Striker for Red MD, special back, and make seals. So good extender, level 5 or higher dragon, and of course with Black Metal, it's a 1-card seals. This does mean you have 8 normal summons, but when you open like Chamber and Parlor, as long as they resolve, they're not just like normal summons, they actually turn into extenders as well. So yeah, sometimes if you see multiple starters that are normal summons, you can actually just still extend all of them out of your hand, which is very, very nice. Of course, long-time Dragonmaid players know that, but for those who are new, it's important to know that even though we have so many normal summons, they're actually all going to be playable out of our hand. Something new in this list that I don't often play, but sort of goes with the theme of the additional card I added in the spell lineup and sort of how I think you have to play this format. I'm playing a Tempest, which is really weird. I almost never play this card. In fact, this is the first time in over a year I think I've played this in Dragonmaids. And that's because, like, this card is so strange because it falls into the same trap as, like, Dragon Extenders. But this can also be a starter. We're not running Gold Sark, so it's not a starter by, like, Gold Sarcophagusing this card and then adding Parlor. I think the 1 Sark, 1 Tempest ratio is just really, really sus because, like, if you draw him, the Gold Sark is absolute trash in your deck, and I really don't like it. But running him, you actually have a lot of wind monsters you can pitch, especially if you decide to run 2 Lorpar, which I'm still heavily considering. You have a lot of monsters you can pitch that you can add any dragon monster from your deck to your hand, which is very, very good. Of course, this is very weak to Ash, but this is also a level 5 or higher dragon that can be good in the grind game and can allow you to push for game much, much easier. So I'm testing the Tempest, and once I get into my hand trap lineup, the Tempest will make even more sense. And then once I get to my spell lineup, it'll make even more sense in why I'm running it. Alright, next up we have some hand traps. We have the 3 Ash Blossom, of course, very, very standard. Nothing much to say there. The 3 Effect Veiler, and the 3 Infinite Impermanence. So 9 hand traps. Yeah, I don't think there's much to say about these specific 9. I mean, Ash is as generic as it gets, and it's the best against Branded Fusion. Veiler is also important at stopping like Aluber, and it's very good versus Sword Soul, and Imperm for the same reason. Like, I think these are just the most generic 9 hand traps we can play, but we do play 3 additional hand traps alongside them, and that is the 3 Droll and Lockbird. So Droll is something I haven't played in a minute, to be honest, but Droll is very, very good this format. Like, against Despia, it's so powerful, especially if they're on the Allure version, or even if they're not, if they start with Patchwork, or they start with Aluber. It can shut them off very hard from a lot of their additional advantage, and shutting them off of that is very, very good. This thing can also be, Droll can also be good versus Sword Soul if they like start with Desires or Vessel, or even Emergence. Like, they're not going to get their Mo Yi Chi Xiao. Like, if they already get Mo Yi Chi Xiao, yeah, this card's not like super great against Sword Soul, but if they search at any point before they go Mo Yi Chi Xiao, they're losing a lot of extra follow-up that can really help you crack their board. At least, you know, this deck's trying to go into the grind, is trying to get your opponent into the grind game where your follow-up's better than theirs, and if you can hinder that a little on their turn, it helps you tremendously. And Droll is in here for another reason. I mean, also it's really good against Fluandereeze. I want to mention that because Flunder is the most evil deck that has ever existed, and this can hurt them pretty bad. But it's also really good with the 1 Tempest we added. Like, I thought Droll was good, and I thought Tempest was good, sort of at the same time. And these work nice because if you open both of these going first, like, you can pitch them and just add like Chamber or Parlor or whatever you need, right? So yeah, Droll and Lockbird, definitely a good card, and you can run like Nibiru over this slot, but then I think the Tempest gets weaker, and I just feel like Droll is very, very good this format. So I am testing out Droll, and those will be the 12 hand traps. All right, next up we have the 3 Pot of Prosperity. So this card, another reason I do not like the branded version, which, you know, I'm going to touch on later, but a brief mention. I don't really like the branded version because it makes me feel like I can't play this card in particular. Of course, if this card is sort of out of your budget, I think the branded option could actually be a good substitute because that version just can't play this card. The extra deck's too tight, and Albion wants to draw, and you can't really use Albion in this, you know, effectively together. So yeah, if you can't afford Prosperity, I think maybe the branded version might be something to look into. However, I really want to play this card in Dragonmaid due to the distinct lack of starters it has, and extenders. Like, you have to draw them together, and it's always been sort of tough, and Prosperity has been the main card that has kept my list so consistent. Of course, this card is expensive, so substitutes do exist. You could run Nibiru over this, you could try branded, tons of different things you could try. But this, or even Small World, I should mention Small World's a pretty good substitute. But Prosperity has just been very, very powerful, and it's one of the reasons I like playing this version. It does have a small confliction with Noctovision, but it's really more of an annoyance rather than like Albion. It feels like it shuts you down a little bit. But yeah, 3 Prosperity. And they're in different sleeves because they're in a different deck currently. For some Dragonmaid spells, I'm still on the 2 Hospitality. I've gone back between 2 and 3 of this so many different times. Right now I'm on 2. It's a really good extender, but like with Crow more in the meta and Bell's fallen off a little in favor of Crow, I think, for Despia specifically. But this card being able to be stopped by Ash and Bell has always been super annoying. And Crow can hurt it too, depending on your hand. If you really had the 1 card starter play, then this card's just going to fizzle to Crow as well. But yeah, this card you don't want to open without a Dragonmaid. It's something very annoying about the Dragonmaid spells, as they require the Dragonmaid monsters, of which you have so few of, to function in an acceptable rate. But if this card resolves, it's insane. I mean, it's a Foolish Burial on top of a Monster Reborn. It's your extender in the Dragonmaid archetype, and this card is so good when it resolves. But I think it's like not as good as Tidying, which I choose to max. So this one's at 2, and we are running Tidying at 3. But yeah, just 2 Hospitality. And then I am actually upping the count of Changeover, and this is for a couple of reasons. 1, Crow is in the meta, right? So Crow being in the meta makes it very hard to play 1 Changeover. And also we have upped our big dragon count with the addition of Tempest. You know, we have the Red MD and the Noctovisions. Of course, I'm considering adding a 3rd Lorepar. All of these things give us a lot of big dragons that can assist us in making Sheo. And even if Crow wasn't in the meta, right now with the way the decks are putting up, like the boards they're putting up, this deck cannot go second unless it is putting Sheo out on the field. Like, its go second plays are, I mean, we have a couple of very powerful go second cards. We have the hand traps that can help us. We have a card I'm going to get into in a second that is a very powerful go second blowout. But for this engine to do something go second, you need to put Sheo out there as a, you know, sort of interrupt. First of all, a huge body, but an interrupt to push into your opponent's board, and then you get House, which can also be an interrupt. Like, if you're able to make Sheo and then normal summon Parlor, you have a lot going on for your go second plays there. And yeah, I just don't think there's any other way around it. I'm honestly considering, like, even potentially other go second blowouts in the deck, but to go second this format into like Mirror Jade, Brandon in red, or like a Sword Soul board, I felt like 2 Changeover and the updated big dragon count was sort of mandatory just to play into boards. Like, it will also help go first a little bit to make it more consistent to see Spheres and Sheo at the cost of some flex spots. Again, this is a 41 card list. I normally like to play 40, and this Changeover, you know, you could think of it as the 41st card, I guess. But yeah, for the reasoning I just gave, I think you have to be on 2 Changeover right now. Then we have the 3 Super Poly. I was just talking about go second blowouts, and yes, these are all 3 in different sleeves. I pulled these out of the binder for the profile because this is what I would be playing in Dragonmaid right now, because I mean, I've been running this in almost all of my Dragonmaid builds for a while. This card is insane at cracking boards, especially while we are in Despia meta. And of course, you are able to use this with your own cards as well, which I've always liked, because you can sort of use this as a battle phase trick with your large dragons you're putting out, and then make Sheo in the battle phase and swing for extra damage. And yeah, Super Poly's always been amazing in this deck. It doesn't do very good versus Fluandereeze, and it really doesn't do good versus Sword Soul either, but we are side decking cards we can swap this out with to, you know, sort of supplement the matchups there. But yeah, Super Poly's always been good in this deck, and I think we just need more go second blowouts because this deck does have trouble going second right now. And then lastly, for spells, we have the 1 Called by the Grave. This card should be banned. It's broken. You should be playing it in every deck you have, except maybe for like some 60 card decks that, you know, you're not going to see it often. But even then, I think you should be playing Called by. And then the last card in the main deck is, of course, the 3 Tidying. You know, this is sort of the best interrupt in the deck. It's sort of the best card Dragonmaids have, to be honest, besides maybe Sheo. And that's because this card is an interruption with follow-up, and it's like two forms of follow-up. Like if you bounce Chamber, you know, to like bounce one of their monsters, it was an interrupt. And then you have normal summon Chamber for the next turn, and you have this effect engrave. So it's an interrupt with two forms of follow-up, which is insane. I mean, tidying is so beyond broken, it's so easily searchable. The only issue is, of course, you know, seeing it without a normal summonable dragon, and then it's a complete brick, but you want to be maximizing this card because it is so good. All right, and that's going to be it for the main deck. It, again, is 41 cards, I believe. So going on into the extra deck, we're going to have the 2 Sheo, which, you know, pretty much self-explanatory. 2 Sheo is pretty normal. It sends itself back to extra deck, so she's not something you really need to maximize at 3. However, the House Dragonmaids you want to be playing 3 of. If you're going to run 3 of any of the fusion, you can play 2 and 2, but I have room for the 3rd house, and it does come up sometimes, especially in the grind games. You know, Sheo is only as good as how many house are in your extra deck, right? Like if you summon Sheo and you ran out of House Dragonmaids, you know, she's not a negate anymore, so yeah, you want to be running more house, if any, especially if you need to make house generically, because she cracks boards a little better than Sheo does naturally, just by like going into battle phase and bouncing some cards and then getting some free pops. But yeah, again, you know, Sheo's so good goes second because you summon it. It's a huge body if you need to negate. She negates and tags out into a 3k beat stick that can pop things. So this is a very powerful, you know, fusion lineup for Dragon Maids. Obviously, part of the reason to play the deck are the fusions. Like part of the reason to play the deck over Dragon Link specifically, I should say, is the fusions. And yeah. Oh, and you know, I just went over, you know, these 5 cards in extra deck, but I forgot I was going to go over sort of why I like this version over the branded version. And I think actually right now is the best reason to talk about it, and that is Hieratic Seals. This is the reason I think to play this version over branded, is because this card, like, every single time I test branded Dragonmaid, you know, you're not making this card unless you don't open any piece of the dragon or the branded engine. Like, you're just not making it because you're locked into fusions. And when I'm not making this card, this deck just doesn't even feel like Dragonmaid. Like, this is sort of the whole thing about Dragonmaid, is every piece of interrupt is follow-up, and you could say the same thing about Mirror Jade. You know, it's an interrupt and it has follow-up attached to it. But Seals, being able to special nurse or any other piece of your Dragonmaid engine, it just finishes like whichever piece of the Dragonmaid cards like you don't have access to currently, while being an interrupt that is so good. Yeah, honestly, like, I want to be making this card. This is one of the reasons to play Dragonmaid, is how consistently it makes spheres with like very few steps, and you want to make this plus Sheo. And yeah, I just want to make this card. Like, that's why I play Dragonmaid, and that's one of the reasons I am not a super huge fan of the branded version as of right now. I just think there's so many things that maybe I'm just not used to it. But like the lack of running Prosperity, you get to play less engine pieces, you don't get to make Hieratic Seals. Yeah, it's sort of the reasons I'm not playing the branded version, is specifically Hieratic Seal. I guess Prosperity is a huge reason as well, though, so there is that. Then we have the 1 Striker Dragon. So this is the bridge to turn your Chamber or Parlor into this, so you can use either Tidying or Hospitality to bring back your Chamber or Parlor and then make Hieratic Seal. So this is what makes it a 1-card combo, if I could grab it. Then we have the Dark, the Unicorn, and the Access Code. Yeah, this little package doesn't come up often. It's usually Prosperity food. And with, you know, DPE being less popular this format, Dark's going to come up less, but it's still a good package to run, and it allows you to sort of climb into a super huge monster to out things like the Arrival Cyburst or, you know, any unaffected Towers card. Even like, what's his name? Psychic End Punisher. This can be like a decent out to him depending on what the life points are at. But yeah, so that is why I choose to play a little package. And then the rest of the cards, I have 3 Super Poly targets. I have the Starving Venom, the Mud Dragon, and the Diplexer. These could be whatever Super Poly targets you want. I feel like you have to play Starving Venom. Mud Dragon could honestly be Dragostapelia, but then your main deck Super Poly isn't good versus Rogue as much, so I feel like Mud Dragon you have to play. This could also be the Dragostapelia. But Salad is getting more popular. Adagnister has done well, like recently. It's done better than I think people thought. Like, Adagnister is a pretty good deck, and this is good versus those, so yeah, I like Salamangreat and adding Mr. would be the main reasons for this, but we're about to get some Marinsa support that I'm telling you guys is super, super good, so this will be good against that too, but you could swap this for Dragostapelia or, you know, Trifio You could even take out the third house potentially, or some of the access code package. But yeah, the Super Poly targets are sort of like the big deal here. And that is going to do it for the Dragonmaid deck profile. Hope you guys did enjoy. It's a deck that, you know, this channel has been known to work with a lot. Like, again, we had a lot of success with this deck over a long period of time. Multiple first place case tournament finishes, undefeated in a 3v3, winning a Starlight Dragoon tournament. Well, I mean, we all top 4'd and then split it, but like, yeah, we did really well at the Starlight Dragoon tournament. Several first place finishes at locals. Like, this deck has treated me well, but every time I think about taking it to a regional, there's just that part of me that, you know, I don't want to break anyone's heart, but like Evil Twin is sort of the better one card starter with hand trap deck. And it's sort of, if I'm taking one to a regional, I sort of always choose Evil Twin. And yeah, the last regional I went to, I took Sword Soul, but I do think one regional sometime soon, if I can find a list I really, really like and I think has more spice than even this one, I'll consider taking Dragonmaid to a regional, because I know so many people on this channel would love to see me take Dragonmaid to a regional and do well with it. But, you know, I just haven't been able to in the recent regionals. But yeah, that's, you know, went on a long rant, but just wanted to talk about Dragonmaid for the people who follow this channel specifically for Dragonmaid, because I know there are quite a few. That being said, leave down in the comments below what you're doing for Dragonmaid this format, what you think of the deck, anything you're trying. Maybe try to sell me on the branded version down below. I know like most people have clicked off the video by this point, but if you have stayed this long, you can try to convince me about the branded version down below. But right now I'm just sort of thinking pure is the way I prefer to play it. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.